Hey guys, welcome back to The Upside, the show where we go deep with founders and investors building the future of emerging markets. Today we're talking to Bereket, founder and CEO of BetterAuth, a fast-growing authentication platform that has gone remarkably well with AI-native companies and is becoming a favorite among developers globally. Bereket's journey is remarkable. Self-taught developer in Ethiopia to Y Combinator Allo and founder of one of the hottest developer tools on the internet. Today, we dig into how he spotted the gap in the market, how BetterAuth took off, and what it means for an African developer to build tools used globally. Hi, Bereket. Nice to have you on the show today.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Tage. Nice to be here.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm all right. You're in SF, right? For the batch.
Yeah, I'm
What
really
batch?
safe.
Okay.
Sir?
What batch is that?
We are the first spring batch. The spring
Okay.
batch, yeah, X25.
Is it
I
the
was the
spring?
part of that. The spring, yeah.
Okay. All right.
This is the
Wait. Go
if
on.
you remember, Wesley used to do two batches
Two
per
batches, yeah.
year. Now they made it 4. So they have like winter, fall, summer,
It's free.
and the spring one.
All right.
Yeah.
That's good to know. And I understand that you just raised $5 million, right,
Yeah.
to build your startup. I think first of all, before we get into all that, just take me back to the early days. Right? You're a self-taught developer from Ethiopia. Just think of it. I mean, I don't think I've interviewed anyone from Ethiopia before, so it's a pleasure to have you here. And you, if I understand correctly, you dropped out of college. How did you teach yourself to code, and what kind of kept you going?
Yeah. So I was studying computer science before I dropped out. I was studying computer science in one of Ethiopian college back home. So I was always interested in computers. I always tried to do something with computer, but I was never a programmer, or I never tried to learn actively programming. Just before that, before I started programming, learning programming properly, was doing music. I was actually like, I
You're
used
doing
to
music.
do music. Yeah, I used to do music. So like I even had I even have some songs that I put out. Like I used to be music producer, so I produce music for other people's. But yeah, I had some music.
Producer, yeah.
Yeah, I use music. I produce music for other artists. So I was like literally just my career with that. And then one day, so this is like my programming story. So one day I wanted to buy a MIDI keyboard, basically a keyboard that you can play music with for a studio, a music studio. In Ethiopia, e-commerce is almost non-existent. There is no e-commerce. So you basically, if you want to buy something online, you go to Telegram channels. There are a bunch of Telegram channels. I'm not sure. Is Telegram popular in Nigeria?
Yeah, Telegram is quite popular in Nigeria too.
Yes, in Ethiopia, that's like the most popular messaging app. So every small business have a channel, so a Telegram channel, and they post their items there. So basically similar to Facebook Marketplace. So they post their product there, and then you just try to find a product you like, and you call them. Or basically, that is e-commerce for most part. But the problem was like Telegram was never built to be, an e-commerce thing. It was just like a messaging app. So if you want to try to find a specific product from different channels, it was impossible. So you cannot actually try to like, if I want MIDI keyword, I cannot search on Telegram MIDI keyword, and I would not be able to find any key. Like, it doesn't work. So like I had this idea one day, like, hey, what if you actually like scrape the data from Telegram, have this website where we post all the products from the Telegram channels, and then if I search MIDI keyboard, I'll be able to get the MIDI keyboard that I wanted, and I can also like see pricing between like different channels and whatnot. So I had a programmer friend. Yeah, so we will scrape the post, and then we'll link their phone number or their Telegram channel if you want to actually buy from them, right? So that was the idea. I had this idea in my mind, and I asked one of my programmer friends if they can build it for me. I think she went to the US to study. For her study, she came to the US, and I couldn't like catch her. So I started like trying to figure out, hey, probably I should just build this myself. Like, let me try to figure out. I don't think it's gonna be that hard, and then it was hard, but I figured out how to build the Telegram scraper. So basically, we'll scrape data from Telegram, and I built a web app that will display this product. So you can search if you want to buy the MIDI keyboard. Now you can actually search MIDI keyboard, and it will fetch MIDI keyboard from all the channels that sells MIDI keyboard, and then give you data. So that was the idea. So I built that. It actually got some traction in Ethiopia. So there were some it has some user base. I think it has some user base. Yeah, we had like about like maybe I don't know about like 500 people visiting it daily.
Daily,
So
yeah.
it was very cool. But then I started building a startup out of that. But
When was this though?
it's called Gabia Search.
No,
The
like when
first thing
was
that
this? When was this? Like,
this is like 5 years ago, probably 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I did that, and that this was like back then. Then after like my entrance to programming, I think I stopped working on that project. I got a job, and then I became like a programmer properly. I started working on some other job, and my career went from there. Like it literally started. I literally started programming to be able to build that product, and I didn't care other than that. Like, it wasn't trying to get a job or sorry.
you learned programming to build the e-commerce platform. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
And
So
that stayed with
yeah,
you to you got like other jobs and you kept on improving your skills.
yeah. So after that, I got a job offer because of
Right?
the people who saw that product, and like through friends and through people, I started making connections because of that product. That's how like I started my programming journey basically. So I built that product, and actually like it didn't take me that long to learn programming because since it was just like for that product, I think I actually built it with after like 5 months of programming, like just like 5 months or like 4 months or something like that. I figured out like how to do Python and then how to do like React, and then I built
Okay.
yeah.
So did that make you drop out of school or was that before?
No, it's point like I think I started. It was my first year CS, first year computer science. Probably at that point, I was just got getting into computer science. But I always had interest in computers, so I would have always choose computer science, even if I wasn't building something. But that kind of like drawn my interest to start like actually being computer science journey.
So wait, let me get this clear. You were in college at the time and you had this product you wanted to build and your friend, couldn't help you with it. So you had to learn programming to build the product.
Yeah.
Based on how far you had learned, you said, you know what, let me take this as a career and drop out of school.
But I didn't drop out at that point. I just kept. So actually, like at this point, I made the college an extension program. So
Okay.
I would go at night instead of like full day. I have the day for me, but I'll just go to college at night, and then like do more of an extension program. Yeah. So at that point, I started taking programming more seriously, and I started having jobs and working for other people.
Okay. At what point, I think I understand that you kind of had a startup before, better, right? And what was the startup about and how did you come across, the problem or what problems did you run into building that startup, right? Set the tone to building BetterAuth.
Yeah. So actually, like everything has some kind of connected path. So
Okay.
when I was building Gavia Search, the Telegram search,
Sorry.
like lookup thing, I was using web analytics platforms. So I was using like Mixpanel, if you know them. Literally Google Analytics. There are
Yeah.
many analytics platforms that you can see your web data. I was using them, and I always kind of got frustrated. It wasn't that frustration, but it was a bit complicated for me to understand, especially like if you track every event, it's very hard to understand like what every event means and how like the visualization becomes more and more complex as you have more and more events to track. So I think when ChatGPT came out, I had this idea of, hey, what if I make AI native web analytics? So basically, the AI will read your logs, so it will read your events, so you don't have to read your events, and then it will give you any data you want by just prompting it, right? You can ask you like, hey, how many active users did I have in the last month? And they will give you like data instead of you actually figuring out through the events, right?
Mhm.
So I had this idea in my mind, and then I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna build this project," and I started working on that. Unfortunately, at that point, I was not that good, so I wasn't able to actually. It was very gimmicky, so it didn't work properly. But I just like have to finish it. So like I started the project, so I actually kept going, and I made it open source, and I made a web analytics platform called Laglib.
Like grip?
Yeah, Laglib, Loglip.
Okay.
So I started working on that, and then like that kind of had some traction. It actually had it was international product. It wasn't like local product. It was for the international community. So it had some traction. So it didn't go anywhere. It didn't go any far. It had some traction. But what I was building that when I was building that, I had a huge frustration with auth. So it was the I had huge frustration auth. So I was basically building this feature called organization. So basically, organization means you have this. think basically create a workspace. Workspace will have members. The members will have specific roles and permissions. So you can invite members. I think if you use like most apps, any kind of like software as service, you probably came across this, right? You use this feature in many apps. But I was using this library called NextAuth.
Right.
So I was using that product, and I wanted to implement this feature. I thought by this point there would be some kind of solution for this, like, cause it's just a very repeatable thing that I don't think like any developer want to really implement that. They just want something out of the box. So I remember going to their Discord and asking them like, "Hey, is there anything that I can use to implement this using NextAuth?" And they told me like, "Why don't you do it yourself?" And I was like, and then I actually built a thing called Next.org.
Okay.
So Next.org basically wraps Next.auth and adds this organization feature. So that was the idea. But while I was building that, I just keep hitting walls after walls. Next.auth was not built to be like extendable or something like that. It was just a very simple library, and it does just log sign in, sign up, and that's it, right? They do not handle anything more than that. So it was very hard to build it. And but at that point, I had this idea, right? Like, what if we actually build a proper library from the ground up that has everything you need from whenever you use the library out of the box, it gives you every feature you need. The basic, like, there are a set of features that you need. And whenever you want to extend that, what if you have a plugin system where you can bring those features with 2-3 lines of code? So for example, if you use BetterAuth today, let's say one day you need to factor. If you want to implement to factor, all you have to do is add a plugin. Like we have a factor plugin. You have that plugin and it would work. So like 2-3 lines of code, and you have the factor configured and ready for you to use. So we have a bunch of plugins. I think we have over 20 plugins by now. You can just pick these plugins whenever you need them, and you will have a working alt service in a very short amount of time. So basically, I want to solve that problem, like the problem that I actually had. And I always see alt being an issue with every developer. If you ask anyone in the TypeScript space, they will always used to complain like about alt, right? Like, hey, like no one is working on this space. There are third-party companies like, I think Clerk becomes. Have you heard of Clerk?
Cleric. I think I have.
Yeah, they become a bit popular in the ecosystem, similar to Auth0, but they have a better developer experience.
Okay.
So they become a more known name, but people still do not want to buy authentication, right? They don't want to pay money for auth for the step of like third-party service. They don't want their users to live on someone else's database. It feels like, if I love, even as someone who just learned programming recently, like compared to most people, I just learned programming 5 years ago. But like even for me, when we learn programming, no one will teach you like, hey, to implement auth, you have to buy this service, right? Like auth is something that you implement in your backend. That's like way every developer actually learns programming, right? So it was a very foreign concept for many developers. But since like auth is getting complex and complex, and implementing it from scratch it takes a lot of time, people just gave up and start using third-party services. So at this point, I was like, this is getting crazy. So I gotta solve this problem.
And are the
I took
third
like
party services like pretty expensive, or are they just hard to implement? So is it because they are not open source that it becomes like, hard to?
It's not being it's open source. First, it lives outside of your backend, right? They have their own service. They own your users. Basically, your users lives on their database, and whenever you need your users, you basically request your users from their APIs, delegate them. If you want to leave one day, their platform is very hard to leave because you don't have your users, right? Like you can't leave them. So it's very sticky product. People, developers in general doesn't really. It's kind of foreign, right? Like users are actually part of your main app and need to live in your own DB. And even if you want to sync, for example, if you want to sync data from these third-party services to yours, you got to build like this webhook platform. You need to have these webhooks to sync data from them to yours. So now you have two source of truth, once with them and once with you. And it's very cool. It's not really fun to build for many developers. So that was the main problem with them. And also they are very expensive if you actually want to pay them.
Like how expensive?
Yeah, for example, Auth0 asks you 70K, if 17,000 USD, 14,000 users. If you have 10,000 active users, you pay them 17,000.
Like for
so
what?
you pay more than one. Sorry?
For 10,000 users, you pay 70K.
Okay, yeah. You can try to check it out if you go to their website. You can see it's like crazy.
That's ridiculous.
It's very ridiculous. Even the cheaper ones still you pay a lot of money, right? And it just doesn't work. It's not really like it is something that you can do yourself, and it doesn't really take that much effort. If you have something like us, I mean, it's very hard if you do it from scratch. Like all is really hard if you do it from scratch. There are many things you need to think about, and it's easy to mess up some security thing that you since like none of us, most developers are not really security experts. It's very
Yeah.
hard to get everything right, and in that sense, it makes sense, especially for big enterprises, to just give up and pay for third party. So our goal is like, hey, what if we just stop this nonsense and just give developers everything they need to roll their own auth? And now also after we'll talk about this, but after defending, we will also like empower big enterprises to be able to own their auth without sacrificing their data for Okta or Auth0. Because I mean, I think that makes sense for
But
enterprises, also for developers.
I mean, the timing too, right? Because like thinking about it, you said when you had the problem, you went to Discord and you asked, and someone asked you to build it yourself. So
Yeah.
like in my head, it was a glaring problem that everyone faced, or everyone just had to find solutions themselves, right? Instead of
Yeah.
building something that others could use. And you taking initiative to do that speaks volume, right? And I understand that BetterAuth has grown insanely fast, right? Especially with devs building native products, right? What would you see? I mean, apart from the glaring pain point, what would you see are the reasons why this product resonates so deeply with, developers?
Yeah. I think like one of also my guess, especially right now with the rise of AI driven development, like everyone uses AI to every programmer now actually like most programmers use AI to as a helper, right? To build these apps, to build new features. So now more and more that you need this, you actually want everything, every context that you can have in house, right? Like every context you can have, you want it in one place so that the AI can access it, right? The AI can change things. So one of the big appeal we have is that like everything is in your code base. So every logic that we have is in your code base. If you want to make it like customizable with AI, all you have to do is prompt it and the AI will understand on how to think that, right? So for example, if you want to implement factor like I was saying, all you have to do is add that plugin in the woodwork. Yeah. Yeah, I think like again, AI driven development as actually kind of favors similar setup like library instead of a third party service because now the AI has all the context it needs in one place. So, for example, if you ask the AI to change to add a two-factor feature, if it is a third-party service, it actually like have to open a browser, go to your subscription. It's just almost impossible to do for, especially at least right now, it's impossible to do for AI. But with us, all it has to do is just add the plugin in the woodwork, right? Like just import the plugin from the path and then add it, and then that's it. So we have these ways of making it easier. So and also once you have AI, once you have like these powerful systems, you don't really need third party services because the reason you need third party services at the first place was because you want to you want to like have the complexity. You want to like offload the complexity to them, right? You want to offload the complexity to them. But once you have AI, you can actually prompt these things. And for the AI not to mess up these features, we give you the building blocks. So basically, the AI doesn't need to implement a factor from scratch, but it can import our plugin in. Now you have to factor. So we have, for example, a plugin for Stripe. So it's not even related to Auth. Stripe is billing and payment, but we have this plugin to implement Stripe easily for you. So if you ask the AI to implement payment billing for you, instead of the AI needing to figure out like how to set up waybooks, how to set up everything, all it has to do is just add this plugin and it will work with your whole auth system, whole your setup. I think that's one of the reasons that we're taking off. Like it's very easy to prompt
Yeah.
and like vibe code using us instead of
Makes a lot of sense, right? Because, vibe
yeah,
coding is changing a lot of ways, developers, program. So if they can have tools where you can just plug in instead of having to call data from a third-party service or an API, they're able to do
yeah,
more faster. And speed actually matters now where people are like trying to build products. I think my next
yeah,
question is also with the fact that speed matters, right? You can see like lots of AI tools being commoditized real quick, right? You can see like someone built something out today, then tomorrow there's a similar tool out there.
yeah.
How have you been able to navigate that, build like a defensibility around, BetterAuth that the legacy companies like Auth0 or Firebase, for instance, right? Or I think you mentioned Cleric. I mean, that's a newer tool. It's that they can't just like, wake up one day and probably build something that you have done already.
Yeah, good question. I think all those kind of problems that has existed for years, right? It's not like something new, something that happened with AI. Even if there was no AI, we still would have existed, and we still would have the same kind of impact. Even though AI like helped us by some amount,
Okay.
like we're still solving like fundamental problem. But I think like our advantage is, first, we have a very good distribution at this point. Like especially with, since it's a library, you have to install it through npm. So you need to use like some specific package manager to install our library. So once you have that distribution, it's very hard to disrupt that. Once you have that distribution. But the second thing is like this is actually something that I personally put in a lot of engineering hours into. So like just 1% is putting like a ton of engineering hours, find the right abstractions, find the right APIs. I rewrote the whole library like from like scratch to full 4 times before putting out the library, because I wanted to get the right API, the right abstraction. So I think it's kind of hard to catch up with us unless you like actually like put in a lot of effort and a lot of engineering. And by that time, we also are probably building a lot more. So I think I'm not really worried about someone catching up with us, even if they start from today or even the existing ones, because this actually requires engineering, and also after that distribution, we already have very good distribution throughout the developer community.
So you just pointed out two things. Like, are you trying to say you're a 10x or 100x engineer?
No, I'm not saying that.
But yeah,
Maybe, yeah,
because I mean, they also have engineering teams, and I'm like, okay, this is just you, right? Compared to, I don't know, like, how many engineers are for
you're right.
one. So, I think,
Yeah.
I mean, just
I think sometimes it's hard for companies to move. Like if it's just me, like I can move as fast as I can, right? Like for example, Clerk had wanted to add the billing feature. Like they have a Stripe implementation with Clerk. Clerk has billing. So if you don't want to implement Stripe yourself, you can use Clerk. To implement this feature, it took them a year. So they say like they're gonna implement this like last year, and then I think they just put it out 2 weeks ago. It's still in beta. They didn't even have to actually like made it production ready yet. For me, like I think after we put out the library within the first month or something, we put out the Stripe plugin, and it's still like better than theirs. It's just like whenever you have like this big campaign, it's very hard to add features, to move how fast. There are other things to do. So like that's what gives startups power to actually disrupt the big players, right? So I think that's like what I mean. Like it takes a lot of engineering power and engineering like focus to actually build something like us.
no,
And it's mostly it's not gonna work, right?
fair enough. So are you the only one on the team building this at the moment, or have you hired engineers?
So yeah, right now we have like literally one employee as a contractor, and just me for most part. And we have like active contributors on the open source project who contributes. But regarding the company, me and one employee.
We'll get into that. I mean, you being a solo founder, right? And also like joining YC. But you talked about distribution, and you said you were in Discord communities, and I'm sure like, with indie hackers, a product like this can go very viral. But as you scale, you're 7 months building this, right? Or 10?
Sorry?
Like how many months in have you built this? Is it up to a year?
Yeah, almost like 9 months.
Yeah. So 10 months building this.
Yeah.
And how do you balance serving indie hackers and startups, right? With the needs of large teams and enterprises, especially when it comes to monetization, right? From my understanding, right, this is a tool that any dev can use without paying, right? Compared to what the thousands of dollars they'll pay with the legacy tools, right? So how are you going to balance that going forward? And and also avoid churn, because I don't know if, for instance, you start introducing pricing, if the price is sticking for them to stay, or if they return. What you're thinking around that?
Yeah. To start from like the churn, the good thing about auth is like it's very hard to migrate from another auth provider to another one.
Yeah.
It's just very sticky. It's very hard to do that. But that said, like the reason that actually the very obvious way to monetize for us was to build another third-party service as a hosted solution. So if you want to use open source, you can use the framework. But if you want to use hosted, we have a solution, and we will give you like a hosted platform. That was the easier path for us to monetize. So like that's like a very obvious way to monetize open source. But we didn't go that path, because like my goal is actually like, hey, this is ridiculous. We have to actually help developers roll their own auth, and everything that we couldn't provide within the open source project, we'll just give you a service for that. And you still use it with the framework instead of the thing we built will be a replacement for the framework. So we're not gonna build a framework replacement. instead we're just gonna give you more like a combining service for the framework instead. Like that's like that, I think rather than churn, actually the if when we launch the infrastructure, paid product you're building, it will give us more adoption to the framework because now people can actually trust and have more features that they need. And they know like if they need those features, we have another service that they can use. So they don't have to build that themselves.
So it is
So
related to individuals and also companies.
yeah, if you are individuals, it will help you. If you are a company, it will help you as well. But for example, there are companies, for example, who start from us, just started using us, and at some point they migrate to something like Workcois. So there's a company called Workcois. They are also an auth provider, but they focus on enterprise features. So they have many enterprise features, but we cannot provide some of those as an open source library. So they migrate off of from us because just there is no solution that they can use within us. So they just move to Workcois. So what we want to do is like, what if you just cut that and whenever you need those figures, we actually have a service that you can use and you can integrate that to your framework. And then it's still like you don't have to migrate from us to another service. So that's like the path we're thinking of instead of, for example, if you know Supabase has an open source library, an open source project, but they have hosted project. Hosted and the open source has nothing to do with each other, right? Like if you use open source, like it doesn't affect the hosted doesn't affect the open source. But we want to build actually like a very cohesive interaction between those two things. So whenever you use the framework, you can do the infrastructure. And the infrastructure also drives adoption to the framework.
The framework.
That's like more of what I'm thinking. And we have actually most of our users are indie hackers, YC startups. Actually, in our batch, most of our batchmates use our library to implement Auth. So especially upcoming startups and upcoming companies, like that's like our main market right now. Because again, Auth is a bit hard to migrate from a different provider. So you gotta start from like the beginning, right? The beginning from the start of the campaign, you gotta be there. So that's more of our focus. We want to provide as much value as we can for developers, and we want to position this campaign to empower developers to be able to own their auth instead of like to. That's literally my goal, and everything we can really do, we just like to advance that mission.
How many devs do you have using the product at the moment?
So we have 150K downloads per week. So like around like per week you have 150K. Sorry,
like counting from.
It comes from like our downloads on like whenever you download the framework, it will count as one.
Oh no, I mean like counting.
So we have
like 1 month, because when you say 150K per week, and you know maybe
so like constantly you have 150K. I think starting from this month, last month we had 100K per week. This month we're going to 150K. Like we want to get to 1 million as soon as possible. Like that is our goal. I think. So there is next auth, the library I told you about, the next auth, the one that I was using initially when I was building my own project. They are almost like deprecating that project, and it has almost 1 million dollars, over $1 million per week. So our goal is to beat them, right? To get there. We have a very easy migration path from them. Like you can try to migrate from them to us within 5 minutes. So like we're doing those things to just grow and beat that market and become like the old framework that you can use. When it comes to TypeScript.
So you're trying to.
I think we have like a very from them. Yeah, but I think it's not being maintained properly, so I don't think they even want data anymore, right? Yeah.
Okay. All right. And yeah, so just coming back to and having supported, I mean, like, numerous hundreds of, companies building dev tools and SaaS products. And just off the top of my head, this is kind of the first time. I mean, there's a dev hook platform from Nigeria called Convoy. I think that got into YC back in maybe between 2020 and 2022. But like, since then, I don't think I've really seen an African product or like, product launched by an African founder, get into YC in this category of dev tools enterprise. Yeah. Just what does that mean to you? And I mean, first of all, you didn't what's it called? You didn't drop out from like Stanford or Ivy League schools. You were Ethiopian, born and raised in Ethiopia. You're a self-taught developer, and you've come this far, right? Building BetterAuth. So I just kind of want to understand like what that means to you, having gone through all this. I think you said you started 5 years ago. So how old are you now, if I can ask?
I'm 24.
24. That's impressive. So yes, what does that mean to you? And also like the fundraising journey, bringing the likes of PKXV also to the cap table. How did that also happen?
Yeah. So I think to whomever is listening to this podcast, I think if you want to learn, if you learn one thing from my story, it's just doing ambitious things actually pays off. So not many people are doing ambitious things. So the reason no one was doing Auth wasn't because it was not obvious. It was because no one dared to do it, right? Like no one just like, hey, I don't think most people just didn't think they would be able to do it, right? That was the reason that no one tried to do it. It wasn't because it was not obvious. I think like there are many problems like this where you like there are like obvious problems, but that they just seem like very complex and very hard to solve. So people just do not even try to do that. When I started like working on this, I was not a security expert. I wasn't like someone who like understand authentication like from zero to everything. Like, literally, this was my learning experience while I was building that. So like, I literally have zero experience building another auth framework, another auth library, anything related to security. Like I have zero experience. When I came here, I had to learn everything from scratch and actually build a proper product, right? So I think if you try to do something ambitious, you should like that will pay off. Just try to do something. I don't think many people are trying to do ambitious things that much. So like if you think about it, that shouldn't be the one like building the solution for all in the TypeScript space. Like there are many people who've been here who've done like XYZ or whatever. Like that should be the one working on that, right? But no one is working on this. Like it seems like many people are working on something, but not really. People are working on a very shallow, like very simple, not simple, but like a very shallow market where some people just like settling in their like space of there's a big space that's not being addressed. There's a big problems that just feels like very ambitious to do. But if you actually do them, like they'll pay off. And I'll say like just from my learning, it's just like, hey, actually doing ambitious things will pay off. I hope like that's something that people can take from my story. But like when it comes to like funding, like it's very hard to raise monies. Even if you see like I have many friends in the past who had a very good background who are like employee for Google for the past 5 6 years. Right? Well, seniors at Google who are working for Netflix as a developer manager. There are people like that from that background. Most people in YC, if they graduated from like these top universities, right? Like the Harvard of like who's in who's of universities in the US, right? So it's I think we were like the top. Actually, a very fun fact: we are the most upvoted YC lounge in the history of YC.
Oh, really?
Us, yeah, we are the most upvoted YC lounge in the history of YC. But like there are many people who can actually like, who have more background than me, more who has like more things to show for them that you can bet on. But I think if you build some people, like, it doesn't matter like how many formulas you want to put in. Like it does. Like I was seeing many people talking about, hey, you gotta care about marketing. You gotta care about like these distribution channels. I think the current market cares about more distribution. You gotta figure out distribution before you build anything. There are many people who say that, but I think it's all bullshit. All you just need to do is just build what people want, and it will pay off. So I think I just build what people want. Like I had many problems that would never get me here. I had like many issues. Like if you just took me as a single individual, and I did not qualify for many of the I don't know the average YC founder would qualify for. But the reason that I got this chance and I got like good investment from very beginning and also had like this track record and like done all the stuff I've done so far, it's because I just built some ambitious project and also something that people want. So I feel like just figure out like what people want, and the best way to figure out what people want is by just figuring out what you actually want. It's very hard to find like what people want by just asking them, or people don't actually know what they want. So you have to like see yourself like what problem do I have that I can solve. It can seem like very impossible to do, but it doesn't matter. Like just everything starts from zero. Right? Just if you learn anything from my story, I can also like I'm not really like people might think I'm the high IQ person or whatever, like I'm very smart or something, but I'm really not.
I mean,
So like all I did all I did was like I just tried to solve a very obvious problem, and I just took my time and just actually like grinded it out for some time. So I think like all the paths I came so far is through building something people want, and the only way to figure out how people to build like what people want is just by figuring out what you actually need. We're not that unique, right? Like none of us are that unique person. So if you have a problem, there is a high chance many other people also have that specific problem. Just figure out what problem you can solve and make sure that's something ambitious, and then just do it. Because like if you can do something that's not ambitious, but the amount of energy that it takes to build something ambitious and something non ambitious is similar. So you rather do like something ambitious rather than
I
non-ambitious, right?
agree.
Yeah.
I mean, YC has the popular saying, like you said, right? Build something people want. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering if kind of because of like the growth that, you found BetterAuth, that they were able to overlook the fact that you're a solo founder, right? And a solo founder coming to like, there are not so many solo founder startups, right? That YC accepts, right? And just
Yeah.
looking at that, I'm like, okay, that's a big deal. And how would you say you were able to kind of convince them that you could, I mean, not convince them per se. I'm sure like the growth, for instance, they saw it and, were impressed, right? But, for maybe solo founders out there who are applying and thinking of, getting teams before they apply to YC because YC prefers that you're not a solo founder, right? Is there like some extra
Yeah.
advice you give to them? Like, okay, you know what, just do it on your own if you have to, especially now where there's the common notion that AI can bring the next generation of, one man or a few team kind of big
I,
companies, right?
yeah. Yeah, good question. Yeah, I think one of the thing that helped for my YC application was I actually applied last watch. So before I got accepted into this batch, I applied last watch and I didn't get it. I had an interview. I think at that point you have like 3K stars on GitHub. It was like just growing. We just started, and then I applied then, and I didn't get it. Like I didn't pass the interview, right? But the next time I applied, we have like 8K, 9K stars. So like people, they actually can see like, hey, this kid had like 3K when
Yeah.
last time he applied. He kept working on that, and now they are like an 9K stars, right? So like they have an actual growth that can be seen, and like that would give them a lot more confidence, right? Like the reason that they don't want you to be solo founder is because it gets harder and harder. And even for me, it was hard, right? Like it wasn't. They're just saying that's just like we didn't do it because it was easy, but we thought it was easy.
Yeah.
It would be easy. But I think that I would say like if you can show some kind of progress, I would say like apply for if you are actually trying to get into YC, I would say like apply one batch when you have some progress because they actually see that, right? I had a conversation with my partner and they actually keep track of every progress we had so far, right?
Yeah.
So if you apply last batch and if you apply it again, you have a chance like they'll see the growth and they'll say, okay, they will actually be able to have some kind of growth, have some kind of impact by themselves, right? They want to prove that to themselves, and if you can make it easier for them, I think it would be easy to do. But like, if, still, I would recommend having a co-founder
Yeah.
if you can find a very like good co-founder. I think that makes sense. But at the end of the day, like if you all want to do something, don't hold yourself because you don't have a co-founder or something like that. Just do it, and it doesn't matter. Like that's not the end goal. Just the end goal is hey, kind of makes something people want.
Thanks
Yeah.
for that, Bereket. So I think, yeah, we've come to the end of another episode, of the Upside, and Bereket offered so many like nuggets for early stage founders, and I think this is the third Ethiopian startup, right? Getting into
Yep.
YC after Avion and BU Delivery. But anyways, yeah. So thanks for taking the time and coming on the show, and wishing you the
Thank you
best
much.
of luck at YC. Anyways, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share wherever you get podcasts via Apple, YouTube. See you guys next time. Bye.
Thanks so much. Bye.